All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the final workshop of this integration workshop series. You made it. Congratulations. And those of you that have been following us for the past few workshops, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening in and hearing me speak. And if you're new to this workshop, like this is the first one you have, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. It's great to see the different people join the workshops and stuff. If you haven't had a chance, go back and check out the first few workshops that we've done to kind of get a background on today's workshop as well, and you can kind of watch the whole series together. If you don't have those emails or you didn't register to the ones before to get those videos, send me an email, send me a message, and I'll be happy to send you over those links. Okay. So up to now, we've discussed the major building blocks for an overall solid foundation for automating your agency. Right. In today's final workshop, we're gonna really dive deep into the first step of the automation, and what we're talking about, as you see, smart forms, data collection. We've mentioned data collection a few times in previous workshops, just kind of in general as an overall strategy. But today we finally look at specifically the why, how, and what you need to begin, with the data collection. Okay, so hey, let's get into it. Okay, so smart forms overview. We're quickly going to go through a workshop number 3 recap. I'll skim through it. So again, like I mentioned, if you haven't had a chance to see that video, please go back and go watch it. Then we're going to jump into that education sales funnel that we always talk about. It's kind of recurring through our workshop series here. We're going to look at what we're talking about today in terms of the funnel. Then we're going to go into the actual bulk of it, smart forms. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk about why, how, and what we're going to do to kind of begin and get started. Then, of course, we're going to do a summary of everything together. So a quick recap of the last the last workshop as automating your ecosystem. 3 main areas that we covered, 3 phases to an automated ecosystem: standardize, centralize, and automate your ecosystem. Pretty standard for each one. Again, like I said, go back and watch those videos. But standardizing your data, centralizing it in one place, and then putting it all together and automating. Okay, so this education sales funnel that we've been talking about. In the last workshop, we started talking about ecosystem because we were talking about bringing the leads from the bottom of the funnel back into the top and kind of feeding itself as an ecosystem. Okay, so today we're really going to focus on what you see highlighted there, the step at your landing page and capturing the leads. Now, we did talk a little bit about that in the website as a salesman, in general, best practices and advantages to having, your website. But here today, we're going to talk specifically about forms and capturing those leads in the same stage. But how are you going to capture those leads, and what are some kind of, tips and tricks on how to get started? Okay. At this stage here, when you're talking about capturing these forms, it's our first chance to kind of standardize the information, right? And smart forms are considered almost any online form that uses database calls based on electronic submissions. Pretty straightforward, I suppose, right? But that means that information submitted or displayed goes and comes to a digital, centralized database, right? I'm sure every one of you have already thought about, centralized database and have something set up in way of the smart forms. So let's dive into, a little bit of the reasons why, how, and what. So why smart forms? Number one, of course, obviously save time. We want to reduce and eliminate the need to manually record any data. You hear me talk about this a lot in this workshop series. Saving time. There's no excuse to manually enter data anymore. There's so many cool tools out there. Definitely check it out. So the next one is transferring the information without any issues. Having the smart forms in a way where you collect the information. Now you can send that information and there's no need for manually entering it again. And the reason why is because the third point, we want to have fewer data entry errors. Pretty obvious one, but if you are getting email notifications right now for like new leads and stuff, where's that information going? I hear so many agencies think, oh, I just get the email notification and I go to my Excel sheet or my database and I start entering manually. That's great and all, but what if you spell something wrong, right? Now you're kind of losing it right from the get-go, the ability to standardize and centralize your data, right? So of course, the biggest why, keeping the data clean, and it kind of runs through this whole theme, right? Transferring the information, few data entry, and standardizing that information. So keeping the data clean. Pretty obvious. I think everyone's already thought about this, as a business owner, as a director. Of course, you're already thinking about these. So how do we achieve this? How do we achieve that? Pretty basic information here as well, but collecting data in a standardized format. I've mentioned it many times, and also using a centralized database. That's how you're going to keep your data clean. How you're going to have these the data collection really work for you when you're building your automation. So the bulk of it, really, let's go into what. And then this is pretty much most of what this workshop is going to talk about, because what do we need to do? Well, let's look at a few tools that can help you today with creating the actual integration forms, right? I'm going to give you some real world examples and ones that relate to the education industry as well, of apps that can be applied. All of these apps that I talk about do have free trial versions, so definitely check it out and see if it works for you. We at Edvisor really believe that these are kind of like the must-have tools if you're thinking about automation, just the beginning. Doesn't mean that you have to use it forever, but if you are just getting started and don't really know where to start, these are absolutely the must-haves. So the first one, MailChimp. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually show you examples. So MailChimp. MailChimp is great for creating simple contact forms, right? Then you can automate the email campaigns and drive leads to your website. That's the whole purpose of MailChimp. It's really great for bringing them to your website, to specific landing pages. And we talked about a couple workshops ago, having specific content for landing pages, right? Whether it be for your work and study, general English, whatever by location, by schools, whatever your content of your landing pages, MailChimp is great for pointing and creating campaigns and pointing them to your website specifically, to those landing pages, so you can kind of capture those leads, right? So here's a real world example. Think about this. You're at a student fair and you meet 1,000 students. That's a lot of students. Typically what might you do? You collect it in a Google Sheet, and then you have your team. Okay, let's start emailing down the chain, or maybe you do create a standard email that you can copy and paste. But think about that. You're emailing. You're spending hours and hours emailing for maybe 5%, maybe 10% of response rate for it, right? So the great way is to automate this, and MailChimp is the perfect tool to do so. Right. Here in this example, what we've done at Edvisor, how we use MailChimp really is for these campaigns. And you can see there's inside of these campaigns, there's calls to action, right? And when we're looking at a way of like the post-student fair follow-ups, right? For example, let's say you have like a work and study section, then, study in Canada, and then you have the call to action with these buttons that point you directly to your webpage. It's awesome. It's great, because now you're converting, you're bringing them over to your page. You're kind of capturing those leads. Now, we run the risk here, though, of too many calls to actions. So with MailChimp, really think about that. Really design your campaigns to think about how you want to point them to your website. And again, don't think too much about too many calls to action. Okay. Going back to the next one here, Typeform. Now, if you guys haven't used Typeform before, it's really cool for designing your own flows for your forms and even your surveys as well. And I have another example here. Okay. Basically, you can design how you want to collect your information. And our real world example here would be, let's go back to, the students at the student fair who are coming in. Now you've pointed them to your website. Now you can use Typeform to create these kind of flows and ask questions based on the campaigns that you have. So let's take, for example, in your MailChimp campaign, you have a call to action that says work and study program. Okay, so on your website now you have a page, work and study, and from there, when a student wants to work and study, there are certain requirements, right? English level, visa requirements, all of these kind of things that you need to know before you can even be eligible. Why? I mean, when you're talking to a student for the first time, they may not even know that requirements are needed to study this program. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want your team to waste time with back and forth emails, trying to find out, okay, what's your English level? Do you meet this and stuff like that? Well, ask it right away on your website, and then you can qualify them. And the Typeform is really great because it has certain flows. You can design pathways as well to different questions and things like that. So when you're designing it, in this example, obviously it's just kind of like a general, flow. What I'm showing you here is just how it actually looks like when you're designing your flow, right? Questions that you can ask, the paths that you can take. And you can see here, you can add cool pictures, some graphics, kind of make it a little more interesting for the flow. We really like Typeform, just because you can really have a lot of control to design it. We do know actually some schools even use these forms to kind of collect information and registration and things like that. Right? So that's Typeform. And the other thing for data collection here, and I will sneak in here, is Edvisor. At Edvisor, we have a web codes tool, if you haven't heard about it. But this is, it really falls in line with this data collection because not only does it collect just information about the student and then just kind of, record it somewhere, it does it automatically, and it's almost an automated system already. If for those of you that are using Edvisor, web quotes tool that we offer, it collects the data from the student, it creates a quotation, and the student can move on to create an application as well. So, I mean, in terms of data collection, standardizing and centralizing your data, I mean, that's the whole reason why we designed it, to solve these challenges that agencies were facing in terms of automation and building this out. So I will just mention it here, as a way. What you're seeing here is an example of an agency that is using the tool. But when you're collecting the data, the students kind of go through these steps, and then they create a quotation based on what they want, and you're already qualifying it. And so that's a great tool for data collection. I won't go too deep into it. If you want to find more information, just email me, let me know, and I'm happy to talk more about it. Okay. And then the final one here for what you could use and where to start, and again, like I said, probably a must-have. And anyone who has sat down and chatted with me, one-on-one, you hear me talk about Zapier a lot. Even throughout the workshop series, I talk about Zapier a lot. But it's really great. And even though Zapier is not like a form creator, Zapier is like the glue. Right? It ties everything together. And in this example, I wanted to show you here is that how, it kind of works on the inside. Because I say Zapier all the time, we're not affiliated with Zapier, by the way. We just really, really like their tool. We really think it's very, very cool what they're doing. But in this example, I just want to show you because Zapier basically looks at your automation system or what you want to do and looks at actions and triggers. And so in this example, Pipedrive, Airtable, and Intercom are all tied together. These are some of the internal tools that we use, to kind of track things. So you can do things like filtering or pathways as well. So if I scroll to the bottom here, you can see pathways. So it depends on how you want to design your automation. Zapier is really, really great to do this, especially for people who don't have the development knowledge and isn't, a coder as well. So we use it a lot. It's a really, really great tool. So those are some main apps that we think are absolutely must-haves. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of some of the apps. Let me know if you've heard of them before, or if you have other apps that you guys use that are really, really great. I'd love to learn about new apps and hear about them. Again, these are just kind of the basic ones that we use and we think they are. So just to summarize, just to tie it all in together, why do we need smartphones? Of course, keeping the data clean, standardizing your database, all of that good stuff. How can we apply the smart forms? Standardizing the format, making sure that your data is, in a way that you can transfer between the systems. And then what are some of the tools we went through, like Typeform, Mailchimp, Zapier. So again, if you have any questions about those ones or some really cool tools, let me know. All right. So thanks for joining our workshop today. This was the last one in this small workshop series. And so today I talked about kind of smart forms and dove deep into the beginnings of it. Basically, the next series of workshops, we are designing them. So stay tuned for that invite. But the next one, we are going to dive some more into advanced details about how an automation will work and how more real world examples of how an education agency can apply automation. And so we're going to kind of consider that as more of an intermediate / advanced level. So definitely stay tuned for that workshop series if you want to look at actually how an automation is designed step by step. Today was a little preview, a little taste of what the next series might look like in terms of actually building out an automation. Okay. So again, thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions or any ideas that you have for the next workshop that you want to see, something that's really bugging you as an agency. We'd love to cover it and we'd love to help you. The idea at Edvisor is helping you guys grow your education agency. Whether you are an Edvisor client or not, this industry is really fascinating and it covers, it's a global industry. So we just want to see it grow. We want to help people grow. We love helping people succeed in their businesses. So thanks again for joining us for this series. Email me, catch me chatting on Intercom, and I'll talk to you guys really soon. Check out our next series and the email will be coming soon. So thank you very, very much.